welcome to this edition of Own the Journey, where we have the opportunity to speak with amazing people from around the world. And today we have a special guest, my friend, my coach, Phil Towle. Thanks for being here with us. I certainly appreciate it.
A pleasure, Tom.
Yeah.
Pleasure.
So you have had an interesting story, an interesting journey as it relates to going from private practice into performance coaching and working with some amazing people and changing their lives, helping them to achieve their best selves. So tell us just a little bit about how you got started and how you went from a guy just doing the thing to somebody who has impacted lives of big names.
Thank you, and it's a blessing to be sure. I guess the place to start would be I was doing psychotherapy for a number of years, and I felt at a certain point that I was helping people bring themselves to even, if you will, and then I thought there was more that psychology could be used for, and I thought about, hey, wouldn't it be cool if I could use psychology to help people improve and elevate their performance and elevate their lives and start from wherever they were, but make that the goal. So I was out, I had an epiphany. I was out running one day and I was trying to figure out, I had an idea for how I was going to do my business. So I was going to call it performance coaching because I thought that would be the representative of what I wanted to do. And I was out and I sort of asked the universe or God, I mean, I'm not a religious guy, I'm a spiritual guy, but I said, and out loud as I'm running, I said, so what's the difference between psychotherapy and performance coaching? And I actually heard a voice, which is, off the charts weird. I heard a voice and the voice said, you used to work with people's nightmares. Now you're working with their dreams.
Wow.
That heavy. So that led me into, I knew then that somewhere inside of me, I was obligated to follow that part of me. And it sort of pushed me over to the place where it gave me a nudge. And I started thinking about where I wanted to go with it. And I made one of the things of my life that has been so special to me is the history of my relationship with sport, mostly as a spectator, but also as a participant. And I was very devoted to my Rams, my LA Rams. My dad taught me how to learn to read from the sports pages of the LA Times and the Rams came to Los Angeles in 46. So I became very attached to them. And I thought, we were living in St. Louis. We were living in Kansas City at the time, and the Rams moved to St. Louis. And I thought, hey, what about maybe trying to see if I could possibly use psychology to work with the Rams? And I had finally got the courage up to call. It took a long time for me to really navigate that because I was scared. And I thought, well, I'm going to call Dick Vermeil, who was just recently hired by the Rams, because that seems like the kind of guy I could work with and for. And I cold called him and he answered the phone.
Wow. Cold calling.
That was, what am I going to do with that, right?
Yeah.
Now I'm faced with the reality of having to do something on that phone call. And we were able to set up a time. He was busy, and he was assaulted by a number of different people who also wanted to do that kind of thing. And so I set up an appointment with him a month later, and I was going to call him. We scheduled a time, and then in the intermediate period, one of the players of the Rams got in trouble, was in jail. Dick Vermeil was inheriting him, and I thought, okay, this is a chance for me to say something about it. I thought he's a player's coach. He has a history. He's come back after 14 years to coaching in. This is the modern era with more, with players having more say in and they needed he needed to be able to quickly be someone that would be respected by the team. So, coach, why don't you go to Nebraska and help this guy and show the team that when anybody's in trouble, you'll be there for them. He did it. That shortened the need for me to wait. And then a month later, instead of calling him, he invited me in for his first meeting with his coaches. We had a round table. That's another story. And that football led to some other things for me.
Yeah.
So.
Well, you work with some incredible names and brands and all the things. So you went from Coach Vermeil and then through his relationships and your in the reputation and the impact that you made. He introduced you into the music industry, and then you've worked with incredible names like Metallica.
That's right.
Yeah,
And then J-Mark
and then Jim Perk.
and Coxell.
That's right.
Right.
Yeah,
And Springfield. I love it.
yeah, right here. So when you think about all the things that are going on in the world, I mean, we talked about this, we riff on it, and it's a tough environment. At JMark, we describe it as having to support the whole human. That there's people, there's challenges, everybody's dealing with something all the time, and you get to come in and kind of help figure those things out and fill in the blanks. What does coaching do? I mean, when people think I need a coach, or if they don't know what it is, help fill in those blanks about how a coach can really make a difference for somebody navigating through a challenge in life.
I love the fact that coaching has become popular, right? It is now a profession. When we think about business coaching, especially, or executive coaching, we tend to think about how a senior person, someone who's been years, has run their own business, comes in to help someone who's younger, and the person that's younger is asking a senior person for advice. And while psychotherapy has an advice portion to it, and coaching does too, for me, as you and I both know, it is about in answering, helping a person discover their own truths and act on their own truths. And actually, yesterday, when I had the privilege of being at JMark and working with one of you executive leaders, Chris, when in our discussion, I had another epiphany, and I got to share this because this is new. I realized that what I do and the way I do it has something to do with what came up for me, and I shared. And that was because Chris was looking at, as everybody does initially, they're looking for me to give advice. The epiphany was, I am not the answer to your questions. I'm the questions to your answers. And I thought that sort of explains what coaching is, and it answers the question, or it explores the answer, right?
Yeah.
I'm contradicting myself. It gives the proper respect, like in our relationship where we talk back and forth and help you discover and me discover things about ourselves that help us manage ourselves and lead us into making more objective decisions.
Mm. I think one of the things I've enjoyed about our conversations and discussions all along is you describe it as you're going on the journey with me.
I am.
You're leaning in, you're learning, you're discovering new things, as well as challenging me to learn from you or think about things differently and consider different perspectives so that we can make either better decisions or just be more informed on a topic.
Well said. So what if you had to answer a question like, what have you learned about yourself from, again, let's frame it. It's not about learning about yourself by me doing something for you, but how in our sharings, what are some things that you've learned about yourself that have helped you be a better leader?
Well, I think we always deal with challenges, whether it's personal or business, and first I would say that there's at no point in life are you not dealing with challenges, and that's okay. And I think that one of the gifts that you help me to understand is, it's not whether or not you're dealing with challenges, it's how you deal with challenges and how you give grace and how you navigate through those things. And so I think what I've taken away from our conversations is that the more sophisticated your thinking, the more sophisticated your capabilities of handling problems, the bigger problems you can solve, and you can make a bigger impact. You can serve more people or make a bigger dent in the world, if you will, as it relates to those things. And I think the cool part about that you truly believe, and I have come to believe, is that individuals have a calling, and people need to figure out what that is, and then lean into it, own it. That you don't you're not put on this earth to fill a job or to do a thing. Everybody has a calling to do something bigger and brighter, and sometimes it takes a performance coach, it takes a challenge, it takes a tough time, for somebody to realize what that calling is and then lean into it.
Well, and you've helped me look at that up close because I know that you embrace challenges, and a lot of us out there are not comfortable with embracing challenges, right? And we see them as threatening, and you see them as growth opportunities, like I do. It's easier for me to say I see them as growth opportunities when I'm on the other side of the challenge. But the calling part of what you're describing really resonates with me, and I hope everybody else will pay attention to that, because when we stay in our heads and are often distracted by the noise around us that distracts us from the inner voice where the calling comes from. And some people can relate to it when they think about being divinely inspired or have a religious conviction. I'm a spiritualist, and I believe that I like to answer questions inside of myself, and I like to pay attention to what stirs me. So a calling to me is when I feel stirred by something inside of me, and as I respond with that stirring to something outside of me. And so for you, I feel the calling has been to take leadership beyond what it exists right now. Now, Adapt or Die, which is a great book, I'm getting into it. And other thoughts that you've written about, because you do a Sunday sermon, and you send out the message.
Yeah.
It helps people. I feel it helps people address at a level, and so it helps leaders think about beyond where they are now to what's possible. So I'm a believer that that's part of your calling. And I'm a believer that part of my calling is to be a part of that experience.
Well, I think when we lean into it, the gift that precipitates throughout any organization and in the community is that when you aspire to make a bigger difference in the lives of others, then the ripple effect of that goes way beyond what you ever anticipate. But in today's world, one of the things that we've riffed about quite a bit in today's world, there's just not enough positive leadership in the world. There's, we hear it on the news and the reels and all the things that get people's attentions. But it bothers me that we're not talking about the great things that are going on. I mean, just when you think about AI, you think about technology, one of the things that's happening in the world is we're able to cure things that were not curable years ago. And we don't take the time to sit down and celebrate the fact that we can now save somebody's life that was impossible. This morning, I just read a story that they were able to create a virus that can kill E. coli bacteria. And there's thousands of people around the world that die from E. coli every year. Now because of AI, we have a technology and capability of being able to change lives. And you think that'll ever hit NBC? You think that'll ever hit the headline news? No, probably won't. But we should be talking about how the world is actually improving instead of all the negative Nancy noise that fills the air.
How do you tune out? How do you tune out? Because a big question might be, how did you learn to be so positive about life when the choice is, in any given moment, there's a choice to pay attention to the negativity that's out there, right?
Yeah.
And how do you manage that?
Yeah, I turn it off, literally.
How do you do that?
Yeah, well, like, click.
You look it up. Literally, it has to show up inside of us because what's going on outside of us is somewhat of a projection at what's going on inside of every one of us.
Yeah.
And when we're scared or uncomfortable, we are gravitating towards negativity.
Yeah.
So what? You tune out the outside, but inside of Tom Douglas, how do you?
Yeah, I think it's the same thing. You got two voices on each shoulder that you can choose to listen to. And I think with your help, I think with the help of others in my life, the way I was raised with my parents, is you choose to listen and lean into whatever you decide to. And if you don't decide, the world decides for you. And so a long time ago, I made the decision that I'm going to pay attention to the light, not the dark. Because that's where I want to live, and I think it's a better way to go. And literally, you have to turn off the news. You have to choose who to follow, who not to follow on social media. You have to. It takes work, like anything else, but it gives you you get to see the best things of life, and that puts a smile on your face rather than, oh my gosh, the world's ending.
I like the fact that you're talking about that you're emphasizing choice, and that's a conscious, willful decision that you're making in each moment. I'm also aware inside of myself, and I'm aware of others, and I'm sure you experience this too, where the conscious willpower part of me, or the willful part of me that wants to choose positivity, can be sabotaged by that other voice, right? And it comes from an unconscious part of it sometimes. How do you, are you that clean in your thinking that you don't have that other voice knocking at the door? Can you amplify on that? Because they could be very helpful to other people to think about that.
I think over the years, like anything else, you have to build a muscle. So I think it started in small moves. One of the most important experiences in my life was when I went to the Navy and I experienced bad leadership, and that helped me to realize what I didn't want to be as I became a leader in life. And I think when you start to analyze the things that either feed you with positive energy or tear you down with negative energy, or poison, if you will, and you start paying attention to people that are in your life, you start paying attention to what you digest, news, information, on TV, all the things. When you start to become critical of every minute in terms of how are you taking in light, are you taking in the dark, you build a muscle to be able to turn it off and find ways to get those people out of your lives that pull you down.
Well, you triggered a lot of stuff when you said that to me. First of all, I hope that people pay attention to the fact that you have that kind of willpower to do it, and it takes will to do that, especially in a society where we're bombarded and often, the media pays more attention because they make money off of selling negativity more, and we're driving down the road. There's a traffic jam, and we look and there's no traffic jam, except people there's an accident on the side of the road, or something's going on the side of the road, and everybody's stopped and gawking to see what's going on.
Yeah.
And there's a lot of symbology in that, but it's easy for us to be distracted like we're talking about. So when the other thing that it comes up for me when you're talking about how you handle that, what it arouses in me is how the unconscious part of me can sabotage. And I'm thinking about how I've given up desserts as kind of a cleanse for the last year and a half. And when I've examined why I was drawn to desserts, it has history in terms of my family.
Sure.
But it also speaks to the part of me that it realized that it's not the taste of the dessert, it's the compulsion to the imagination of what that will give me. And it's that the management of that part of myself is harder. And I suspect for all of us, we are governed more by our unconscious minds than we really would like to be. So that our conscious minds have to train to compete with our unconscious mind when it pulls us in that opposite direction.
Mm-hmm. Well, I think that's true. I think that we fall prey to our habits and our experiences, and if we don't make a decision to change something that is unconscious and move it from the unconscious to the conscious, then it becomes, just another thing in our lives that could, not always, but could lead us down a negative pathway. And so I think the process that you helped me walk through and that other experiences is like, well, put a flashlight on everything, question everything, be curious. Why couldn't it be better? Why can't you be better? Why can't you challenge the status quo? Why do you have to accept complacent leadership? And why can't you be a challenger as a leader and help people to make a better choice in their lives and all those things? And so it kind of goes back to the conversations that we've had, like everybody has a calling. And so we have to push and pull in order to find it.
What do you think as you look at the future of leadership, and where you're sharing some of the wisdom you have about how you operate with J-Mark, and also you're sharing it with a larger public, what else are you discovering about where leadership needs to go in this generation and the next, and especially with giving attention to AI and its infiltration?
Yeah. Well, I'm going to answer it, then I want you to answer it.
Yeah. Okay.
From your perspective. But I think
I gotta say that. See, I just want to say that's what I appreciate about our relationship is how we riff off of each other. Spot.
it is that, yeah.
Thank you.
Uh, I think the biggest challenge that leaders are going to deal with in the next 5 years is adaptability. I wrote about it years ago, but I think it's gotten worse, and it's gotten way worse. That we not only do we have to adapt business to the new trends that are going on, but we have to adapt leadership to be able to think about things differently. So we're going to not only manage humans and have all the complexities of managing humans, but we're going to manage agents, and we're going to have to figure out how to maintain human in the loop and ethics and good decision making. And if you have leaders that are stuck in a mode, then they're just going to get zoomed by, because we have to adapt to these new ways of thinking, these new technologies and capabilities for us to be able to be successful in our roles. And truthfully, in my opinion, if you're a leader that can't adapt, you're going to let your team down. And that's the most important job we've got, is to serve the team. And so if we don't do a good job of adapting so that we can help people to navigate through those things, people like Dick Vermeil are going to have to make the hard decisions to fire their friends.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Adapt. Adapt is a great word, and what that stimulates in me is how, as human beings, we have two different drives that start when we're in the womb. Like one drive that starts in the womb, that is security. When we're in the womb for 9 months, everything is taken care of, and that is that's the first part of our experience. It's inherent. It's intrinsic to our human being. So when we leave the womb and are exposed, and it doesn't work that way anymore, it starts to work less that more, then we start adapting to, we sort of decode what our environment is. And one of my favorite things, metaphors is, for examples, is like, I'm crying because I have a stomach ache, and my mom gives me her breast or a bottle, and I continue crying, and my mom doesn't know, and I can't speak. And so the confusion starts off, it shifts from the womb where everything is secure, and now I have to adapt to a world that doesn't provide the security. I think all of us as human beings struggle with that issue. That's oversimplified, but we struggle with that issue throughout our whole lives, and we spend a lot of time trying to adapt to how I can love and be loved, because I think that's our purpose on this earth. It doesn't happen cleanly. Okay, the adapting that you're talking about is how we have to adapt, or we don't, or we die, literally. So adapting in that context, but I wanted to set aside that a little bit difference there. And adapting to what you're talking about means that I can't be complacent, especially as a leader of people, and especially leading a business or an enterprise that takes me somewhere. It takes us all somewhere. I can't sit still with where I am.
What got me here won't get me there.
Right. So that, for me, in my work, in my field, is helping people who get stuck trying to hold on to patterns that temporarily have worked for them, or have worked for them up to this point. And now they're faced with a challenge, an external challenge, like a business challenge or a personal challenge. And they're not ready to change, because change is threatening. And I think the change is threatening comes back from the core visceral experience we had as little people, and it's a threat. So there's still that kind of angst that every leader faces when they have to do something that's challenging. That, going back to what you've said at the beginning, that you do really well, is you embrace the challenge, and you expose yourself with that calling part of you. You expose yourself to what's possible, and once you see what's possible, that frees you up to adapt to something that's out of your comfort zone.
Well, with all the people that you work with, and I want to lean into that, sure in it, but with all the people you work with, you've seen personality traits and you've seen skills, mentalities, and capabilities that people have that embrace that. That's like I can adapt to anything around me. I can handle the chaos. I can manage the chaos and thrive. And then the personalities and the individuals who that tears them down. That or shuts them down. It becomes almost fear based in a certain, like, I'm not good enough, imposter syndrome, all of those kinds of things. What have you learned about people? And then if somebody's stuck, how do they get unstuck? And for people who thrive in that, how do they make sure that they're not creating an unnecessary wake of chaos behind them for a team that they're trying to navigate through hard times?
That's a great point. And it has to be done very carefully, right? One of the things that see we're ripping off each other, and that one of the things comes up for me is my experience with fear. And I think when I really look back on it, every step that I've taken going forward I've been exposed to my fear. And over a period of time, I've learned that fear is a friend in a sense, because it's a gateway. And if I worship the fear, I back away from the opportunity, I back away from my calling, I don't step into the situation, and I don't find out that I can handle that situation. There are numerous examples in the stages I've been blessed to experience where I've been afraid. And I do go towards where the fear is.
Because it's a pathway. It's how do you like it? For the lighthouse.
Yeah.
It can be.
Yes, exactly.
Mm-hmm.
Any thoughts about that?
Well, I want to hear your thoughts on how people, the personality types though, that handle it well versus those that don't, which you've experienced.
I think all of us are born to be creators on this earth. I think we are all creators. We all have different platforms.
Mm-hmm.
There's a strata here that's kind of misleading on earth. Like there's a hierarchy that's imposed. We impose upon ourselves, like someone's lesser than we are. There's no such thing as that. And the strata and the imposing of fear, the imposing of hierarchy, means that some people start off feeling less, and they stay there, and they don't have the courage to take their steps because they measure their steps against someone who's famous or someone they're dramatically a representative of something they never can be. Whoever we are on this planet, we are challenged with the balance, the fight between fear and love, and our objective is to love. And so when we choose the love is more powerful than the fear. Okay? And the human personalities, the people who succeed, or we think succeed, are first of all not necessarily succeeding. Okay? Mm-hmm. They may be appearing to succeed in our society because we rank them that way, like famous people that are succeeding at the craft and they're getting adoration and praise, but they're troubled or struggling inside, and they don't have to look at their fears or insecurities because they're temporarily buoyed up into that place. Mm-hmm. So for us, for the person like myself who isn't that person famous, and I have to, I like to think that I'm a part of that group that will challenge my fear. I don't know that there's a way to a formula, but I do know that we all face the same things. Maybe what's coming to me right now is maybe the person who is lower on the food chain in our eyes is doing something more dramatic. Not maybe, as I'm thinking about this out loud. He or she is doing something more to address their fear by simply surviving. Let's say someone in deep poverty. Mm-hmm. The fact that they're breathing and the fact that they're moving forward is a greater accomplishment than what you or I would do in our normal lives. So we have an obligation, all of us, to find that, to embrace what we're doing right now The doing of who we are is the doing as the platform. And we don't measure that platform and compare it to somebody else. We measure our you've taught me this. I mean, we measure our success on the basis of how we deal with what our reality is right now.
Yeah. Our perspective.
That's a long-winded answer.
Well, I think what it raises for me is one of the things that I took away from that anyway is that those who navigate through those hard times ignore the comparisons. They decide
They don't think about it.
Or they do and choose to ignore it or overcome it intentionally. That the comparisons kind of become the poison, and they say, I'm going to do it anyway, regardless of the comparison, regardless of the handicap that I may have, regardless of the circumstances that I may have been born into. I'm going to be successful in my way, whatever that is, regardless of the hand originally dealt, because I'm going to choose to have a better hand.
How do you, I mean, again, it comes back to willpower, and you're powerful, that you've really got great will and you can make those choices. There are the vast majority of people, I think, are not as strong in having that kind of will. Do you have any thoughts? I'm still looking for how you, there has to be a part of you that's been vulnerable and has been afraid.
Oh, sure.
And so how did you train? You said your childhood and you had supportive your family and stuff like that. But how did you condition yourself to come to a moment and be able to choose positivity? For example, you are really good at projecting out the next 5 years of what the economic situation looks like. You do a lot of research. You're great at supporting that with data. And you know that there may be some challenges in our economic system, and there are now.
Yeah.
And yet there's a part of, and you prepare your organization for that, but yet you're positive about it in the face of the threats of some of that. Mm-hmm. What's it like to lead that, and what are your own personal struggles with that?
Oh, well, I'll go back to your first question, willpower. Where do you develop the willpower to do anything hard? And I think there's a part of our brain, and you'll know this better than I don't know the details, but there's a part of our brain that we train and that is always trying to keep us safe. And it's a preservation system that we have to preserve energy, to preserve, everything that we've got. And I think it fundamentally starts with choosing to do the hard things. This is going to sound crazy. I'm a part of a group that has made a commitment to do 100 push-ups minimum every single day. And there are days where the idea of getting down on the ground and doing 100
consecutively?
No.
Okay, thank you, man. Thank you almost everybody out there just relax a little.
Yeah.
Right.
No, but there are days where it absolutely sounds like the worst thing in the world to get down on the ground to do it because you're just tired or it's late or whatever it is. But when you develop the mental muscles to say, no, damn it, I'm going to do it anyway, even though I don't want to, the willpower associated with the ability to talk yourself into doing the thing that you don't want to do or to not do the thing that you do want to do, that strength is a superpower in my opinion. And so the way I think about it is every time I am faced with a situation where my natural instinct is, I don't want to do it, it's too hard, it's too challenging, I did my push-ups today, I can probably handle that.
Just like I was talking about fear. It's like you've learned to master by doing, right? And you've learned by doing to reinforce it because you're successful at the outcome fulfills your calling and it fulfills your belief system and what's right for you.
Yeah. Well, my belief is that I have the opportunity to make a bigger difference.
Talk about that because I think I told you this last week. I was with Coach and we were doing another gig, and Tim Tebow was the speaker, and Tim Tebow is never been a pretty much Tim Tebow, and one of the things he said that struck home for me is he doesn't seek success as much as he seeks significance.
He wants to be of significance. That's such a great word, because success has that, everybody wants success. And it tends to, even though we want our companies to be successful or our families to be successful, it tends to be more personal. When you think of significance, you think of leaving a legacy, or think of being relevant to somebody else. And you are that. So how do you amplify a little bit on that?
Well, I don't know if I am yet, but I'm trying really, really hard.
Don't you love his honesty and his willingness to say, I'm still working on it, rather than I have the answer. Thank you.
Well,
Appreciate it.
Yeah, Phil.
Yeah.
So here's the way I think about it is that when you have the opportunity, and you've helped me learn this, when you have the opportunity to make a bigger difference, to change more lives, to help people, to fill them up, to do whatever, at a certain point that actually shifts from being an opportunity to a responsibility. And I don't like letting people down. I don't like missing opportunities. I don't like not giving people the chance they deserve, or maybe not deserve. Maybe it's just the chance that they need or that you want to give them. And so for me to not fight with every waking moment, with every ounce of my capabilities, to fight for that better future that we can all be, it almost seems deceitful to let that
That's a
occur.
great word.
Yeah.
Because I think it is deceitful.
Mm-hmm.
I really believe that we are all one. We talked about that before. We are all one as a human race, and it's very deceptive. It's easy to say, well, this person looks this way.
Yeah.
This person is different. And one of the things I look at with myself that I continue to grow is it's so easy for me to just look at somebody and make a judgment, whether it's a positive or a negative judgment.
Sure.
Instead of saying this person is a part of me, I'm part of them. That view allows me to connect with people differently than if I have a preconception about them, that even an unconscious or a conscious one. So when we're talking about the ability to manage your will and your capacity to choose, it is strongly influenced by our history and our life experience.
100%. Yeah.
And so what you're saying, go ahead, expound a little bit. I just wanted to hear.
I think one of the things that's most important about that is you have to find your guiding light. Because if we decide to be a passenger in life, then life chooses for us. But if we set a guiding light in every decision, every purpose, every waking moment, that we want to focus on those things, that's where we're going, is to make that occur. And that gives you meaning, that gives you purpose, and that gives you a direction to push into life. And I think that there's a lot of people that don't find the guiding light for them. What is their meaning, their purpose, their direction that they need to be driving towards?
I like the term guiding light. And so you're saying that that's an essential core of what drives you?
100%.
Did you have an experience, not an epiphany particularly, but how did you discover your guiding light? That's a tough one, isn't it? I mean, I'm thinking about that right now.
Yeah, I don't know. We're one moment.
It was an cumulative effect.
Yeah,
everything.
Yeah. When you saw that you could affect more people, and what we do isn't just like building people and teams within JMark. And JMark, we support hundreds of businesses around the world. And if you have a cyber event in one of those things and somebody loses their business, you're impacting lives. And so it's how do you drive through those challenging situations in order to protect businesses, help them thrive so that they can achieve their mission, serve their teammates and customers as well. So, I mean, it cascades beyond just human to human.
I'd really want to emphasize and support the position that as human beings and being one, the responsibility is the primary responsibility I have is to the other person. I don't always live that way. When I'm scared, I'm only thinking about myself.
else screw up.
When I'm free and being myself, I am thinking about other people. I did not see the movie 300, but people have told me about the movie 300, which is about a group of 300 guys facing a whole bunch of people. And what struck me, what I heard about it was each of the soldiers put his shield over the next guy. I love that. And if we could, and that's the way you live as best you can. I mean, nobody's trash. One of the messages coming out today that's really, really important is the calling that all of us have at the prime primitive center of our souls, is to take care of other people, is to be to help other people.
Serve first.
Serve, right?
Yeah.
And we're in a culture now where it almost is antithetical. Some of us are talking about that today. It's like, I can push a button and get what I want quickly. I can be served. I'm growing up feeling like I'm here to be served.
Entitlement.
Served.
Yeah.
So there's a swimming upstream against a core value. I mean, the core values that we all have as human beings are the same. The mission, as we talked about yesterday, everybody's business mission statement is essentially the same, but not everybody delivers that on the mission statement. And it's because there's a temptation to use that mission statement as opposed, like we do on the internet or internet dating and stuff like that. It's like posing to try to attract attention and keep and conceal other things that are more relevant.
Yeah.
How do you deal with, I know at J-Mark
So I'm going to flip it around because we're going to run out of time.
Thanks.
Okay. So I want to hear about your days in dealing with Metallica, Rage Against the Machine.
Metallica, right? Okay. Okay.
You helped navigate some really hard times for them, kept them together as a band, and helped them thrive and have kind of another launch even in their journey. So talk to us about what it's like to navigate through the hard times with somebody like that.
Well, they how much time do we have, right?
Yeah.
They taught me so much about myself. One of the things that was really helpful was I left the office, if you will, and I moved in with them, which was a huge move and necessary.
That's commitment.
That is. And because I knew that to do what we needed to accomplish was going to take more than, it's not about, can you imagine? I mean, I guess they do it, but vans coming in and sitting in someone's office and talking. No, you go where they are. And since then, I've done more of that. Of course, by Zoom, you could go where somebody is, but it's so going to be with them and being a part of them, which was really important. And I've shared this story before, but the audience would love it. I mean, it's like our son used to blast Metallica through the house, and I hated Metallica's music because of that. and so I get with these guys, and I begin to understand what they were saying, why they were saying it. And they've been so transformative as an act, as performers. They have reached people where they hurt and where let's say the disenfranchised, as heavy metal has done. And they have been, and they're pioneers, not just in the music industry, they're pioneers as human beings. Getting to know them as people, they're really, really wonderful people. And so, and their challenge was, I mean, the intoxication of fame. When you're famous, like we were kind of alluding to before, when you're famous, you're immune to the day-to-day stuff that the rest of us are. And as I said last night and shared, is probably worth saying again, is one of the guys came up to me after they finally got their shit together. I'm sorry, but they got their stuff together and went out on the road. One of the guys came back and said, "I'm suffering from PTSD."
Yeah.
And I said, "What? You're suffering? What do you mean you're suffering from PTSD?" And he said, "Well, I come home and I have to empty the trash. I have to take out the trash." And I reminded him he doesn't take out the trash because he has people taking out, layers of people taking it out of the trash.
Yeah.
But he meant the shock to his system that he's a human being like the rest of us, and he had forgotten about that because he'd been taking out the trash theoretically in the interim period where they weren't out on the road and they were struggling. But what brought them back together is their commitment to the calling. Their calling was music.
Well, what I heard you say in what they did, and I'd never put this together until you said it, is they created a community that people could belong to.
Beautiful point. Because we're a divided human race, it's important for our many cultures to at least service a larger purpose.
Yeah, you said that they connected to the disenfranchised crowd, so they connected with this group, and it gave them some place to belong, something that people had in common with them. Because it's interesting. So how did you help them to navigate through the challenges? I mean, I think one of the things, and we touched on this a little bit, that people assume is that when you achieve a certain level of wealth, you achieve a certain level of success or fame, that your problems just go away. And that's just simply not the case. You're just dealing with a different set of problems, and sometimes even more complicated, more sophisticated, and it takes a lot more mental strength in order to navigate through those. Right. How did you help those guys figure that out?
Well, in the same way you work with your people, but the communication was important. The communication was broken. Mm-hmm. There were conflicts and people had formed, like we were talking about, they formed judgments towards each other, and there was a lot of fear and insecurity that was driving that. It's hard to be famous and maintain fame and maintain a proper perspective in life, and our unconscious minds or our part of our souls won't tolerate. We can't outrun our issues, and so. The issues, we learned that the issues were an opening, like you would say. They were conflicts that gave us, we looked at the conflicts after a while, we looked at the conflicts through the lens of opportunity to use it to get close. The conflict, we were temporarily stuck in our stuff, and the conflict was begging us to change the way we were doing it. We were getting stuck because we weren't adapting to what needed to be adapted to move with the relationship and the evolution of the relationship. So I was a part of that. And I'm not trying to be modest about it. We all kind of figured that out as we were going along. One person went into rehab for quite a period of time. And then the rest of it, one of the things we did that was smart was the rest of us started working on ourselves. We continued to work on ourselves, knowing he was working on himself more every day. He was immersed in a full-time rehab thing. Yeah. Okay. And I guess that certainly the transition to what we're talking about, every one of us out there who's listening or part of this program, because you're part of this experience right now, the management of our own selves, the willingness to face our own issues, not necessarily waiting until the conflicts show up, but when the conflicts show up, recognizing that's like fear is an opportunity to grow. It's not something that we back off from, and making choices and be willing to engage that at that level. That's really important. And better yet, being like we were talking about with Tom, the part of Tom and J Mark and how they are, while they're working to move forward, they are also looking at what they might face ahead of time. That's what good leadership vision does. And in anticipating some of those things without getting caught up with an outcome and attached to an outcome, at the same time being, preparing and preparing smartly allows us to maybe it doesn't alter the course sometimes the conflict is created for, but sometimes we hedge our bets a little bit, and sometimes we don't hit the conflict with being overwhelmed by it.
Yeah, one of the things I took away, and that was a lot, but one of the things I took away from that conversation is that when life gets more sophisticated for whatever reason, we have to develop new tools in order to maintain the relationships that we've got. Well, AI, but it could be just in the sophistication of a business. businesses grow, more people to manage, more lives to support. But you need a new set of skills and tools to deal with the more sophisticated problems. So we as leaders have to always be evolving, and sometimes we need help in order to figure out what those are.
I think it's really important for us to understand that every one of us, it's like you're talking, like the book is saying, adapt or die. We evolve or die. If we don't, that's sort of the same thing. But evolution means being open to
Change.
Yeah, to what has and embracing that idea. Because again, if we return to our roots, we want to go back to the womb where everything is secure. We look at everything through the lens of when we're afraid. We look at, well, where's our retreat? Where's our Where's our drug? What is our habit that can relieve us? But relief is not resolution, and relief aborts the opportunity for us to grow. And that's a really nice thing to hear myself say, because it means thank you for that. And then what happens when you rip? Everybody grows and evolves. So relief, it strikes me that relief, when I relieve myself, I cheat myself of what I need to do in order to get to the next level.
Yeah.
So leaders out there,
Don't rescue yourself.
right? Yeah. Thank you.
All right. Well, we've got to wrap it up, Phil. So one of my favorite questions that I like to ask folks is, of all of your life experiences, what's some of the best advice that you would share with the audience?
Growing is really important. I mean, what we just were talking about, and what what you are mastering. It's a very thoughtful question. I like that question. I like for people to answer. Everybody out there that's watching this program to think about that. That's a really wonderful question. There's a lot that I could offer here. I just really like. Well, I like the fact that the true answers exist inside of us. And I've spoken to this before. That it's so easy for me to try to define myself by looking outside of myself. And I'm not saying that outside, I think outside is helpful.
Context.
But yes, but it's really important for me to spend time with myself and ask the question, like, why am I on this planet? Who am I? And remind myself, that's a tough question to answer. Here, just a side, do I have time for a sidebar here?
Yeah.
Okay. We a quick sidebar. So I'm practicing this a little bit now when I go into a social situation. Instead of asking someone, so what do you do? Which is the way we all do it, right? We define ourselves by what we do, who we are, who this is what drives us, who we are. And I need to be in touch with who I am. So paying attention to answering that question. Right now, I'm totally gratified. That's what I feel. So blessed, man. Thank you for having me on. Thank you, everybody out there. And,
We'll raise a glass to you, Phil.
Thank you.
Yeah. Congratulations on owning your journey.
Thank you.
Thank you very much.
Thank you, Tom. Thank you
Cheers.
so much. Love you, man.
Love you, man.
Thank you.
Yeah.